This is B-Movie Mike, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to give you my 2 cents on the new movie Resident Evil Afterlife in 3D. Just came out in theaters recently. This movie stars Mila Jovovich as Alice, Wentworth Miller as Chris Renfield, Ali Larder as Claire Redfield, and Sean Roberts as Wesker. Those are like the main characters, and since this is just my 2 cents, I'm not really going to go into too much detail about the cast. Those are the 4 main characters. They all do a pretty good job as far as what they're supposed to do, except for the guy who plays Wesker, and it's not really his fault. I guess it's just the generic nature of the character, but it's just his character's like a generic Mr. Smith, played by Hugo Weaving in The Matrix. And as a matter of fact, this entire movie is a ripoff of The Matrix. I mean, if The Matrix didn't exist, then this would probably be one of the most groundbreaking films ever made. It is in 3D, using the Avatar created cameras and stuff that James Cameron came up with, and it's beautiful. It looks great. The CGI is well, it's pretty good, but you know, I'm B-Movie Mike. I get a heavy dose of really bad CGI all the time, and if you've watched any Sci-Fi Channel original productions, you'll know what I mean by bad CGI. And as far as that goes, this is decent. I mean, the zombies are like from Resident Evil 5, the game. They have these weird octopus tentacle things that come out of their mouths and grab people by their heads, and it's not bad, but there's just not enough zombie action in this movie. I mean, it's supposed to be about zombies. And you get these 3 characters running around and all this Matrix bullet time bullshit. I mean, the entire first 10 minutes of the movie is a giant what the fuck moment where Mila as Alice goes after Wesker, and it's just one bullet time jump slash. And there's one part after she dispatches a bunch of Umbrella Horde or whatever they're called, soldiers. Then she stops, and there's a whole room full of soldiers coming at her, and her eyes, dilate really quick, and this giant energy blast just blasts them all back. And I was thinking, if she could do that, why didn't she just do that first instead of jumping all around and slicing people up? Well, then you wouldn't have had all the cool Matrix bullet time, jump around, slicing people up. Kind of needless. Well, then she's stripped of her powers, but that never seems to matter in the movie because she still does pretty much all the same things that she ever did with her powers, except for the eye dilation and the explosion. But yeah, if it didn't look cool and it wasn't entertaining, at least, I mean, it's such a retread of the Matrix that it's almost like, oh god, I've been there, done that before. I don't know what else I could say about this film. It starts out, like I said, with the 10 minutes of what the fuck, and then she's in a plane on her way looking for her friends that were in Part 3, Apocalypse. And they were going to go to Arcadia, Alaska, because they had received a radio transmission that it was infection-free, and it turns out to be a trap, that it was just Umbrella capturing all these people that unfortunately showed up and using them for experiments on their next virus. Well, Alice gets there, and it's like just a plain graveyard. And she gets attacked by this wild person who turns out to be Claire Redfield. But when Umbrella had captured them, they had put this scarab-looking thing. It's silver and red. And I guess it erases the memories and some kind of mind control device. It's never really explained. But Alice rips it off of her, and it takes her a while for the effects to wear off. And for most of the movie, she doesn't know who she is or what she's doing, but she seems to remember how to fight pretty well. So they get in the 2-person plane, and they take off, trying to look for survivors. And they end up in L.A., or what's left of L.A. They're flying around, and they see a la Dawn of the Dead, the remake. We need help, and there's survivors jumping around and shooting off flares and stuff. So she decides to make an impossible landing, which is visually great, but whatever. She lands on the roof. There's too many people to fit into the plane, so now they have to figure out another way out of the building. Well, in the meantime, they find out that Arcadia is not Alaska, it's a ship, and it's actually out in the bay in L.A., and they can see it, and they don't know how to get to it, because the building they're in is a former prison, and is completely surrounded by zombies on all sides. And that's the bad thing about this movie, is that the zombies aren't really much more than a barrier. There are a few fights between humans and zombies, and there's some decent zombie action, but it's mainly just a character drama about people trapped and trying to figure their way out. It's Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. You know, we're trapped here. We're trying to get there. How do we do it? And there's always a couple of shysters in the mix that try to muck things up, and I don't want to give away too much. But it's just one mindless slow-mo fight scene after another. There's one character from the video games that was in Part 5. He's a giant guy with the axe. You've probably seen him in the commercials. Well, Part 5 takes place in Africa, and this guy shows up in the streets of L.A., just out of nowhere, and starts banging on the door with the hammer, which leads to a pretty cool slow-mo fight scene. But it's just one setup after another. The plot is non-existent. It's just another excuse for another movie because it ends on on a cliffhanger. They end up making it over to the boat. Turns out to be an umbrella ship with a bunch of people trapped inside for experiments. Some have been taken. Some, it's been abandoned. Some are gone, but there's still like 2,000 people there, and they find more of their friends. Then they battle Wesker again, but then he escapes, and I don't know. It's just mind-numbingly. I had to turn my brain off because if I would have actually tried to figure it out, my head would have exploded out like scanners. It was just, I don't know. The zombies look good, but like I said, they're just an afterthought, really. There's only a couple of good ones. Mila Jovovich is, great as Alice. It's same thing. It's not much different than the rest of the Resident Evil films. That's really about all I have to say about it. It's just, I can't recommend it to anybody. If I were going to rate it, I'd rate it like 1 star out of 5. That's being kind of generous, but the visuals and the 3D, there are a couple of really good scenes when Mila's walking through a crowd of zombies, and she's walking toward the camera shooting them, and the bullets are flying out of the back of their heads and spraying brains and blood on the screen in 3D. Now, that was pretty freaking awesome, but those kind of moments are few and far between. It was just more of a sci-fi action film than it was a horror film. I mean, if you love The Matrix and you love Resident Evil, then it's probably the abomination for you. But I'm not a huge Matrix fan. That stuff annoys me when they stop and every 5 seconds to do something. It's ridiculous. It's like my brain pauses and waits for the action to start again. There's always rain for some reason too. There's water in every scene. I guess it makes it look more dramatic when the water's flying up. I'm just gonna have to end this review with my final thoughts on this movie, or just what the fuck. I had to turn my brain off to enjoy it, like I said, and it was okay. It was a decent night out. It was a couple of laughs. Just there's nothing of substance in this movie, and I can't really recommend it. So, on that note, this is B-Movie Mike signing off, and I'll be back again with another review later.